Okay, I wanted to make a few comments on this issue of Justin Vacula and his appointment as some with a secular coalition of America as some kind of regional branch. Well, I mean, they haven't appointed him as a branch. Obviously, he's appointed as a human being, but he's been appointed at, I think, a regional branch there, and quite a brouhaha has ensued because he's not universally popular, let us say, especially with some of the people over at Free Thought blogs. I don't want to get into the specifics of whether Justin Vacula. Can I just say Justin Vacula? When I first heard, I was really disappointed. When I first heard of this guy, I assumed his name was Justin Vacula, and I realise now I'm not the only person to make that erroneous assumption. I was kind of disappointed to find out that it was Vacula. I'm not one to tell somebody, I think it's wrong to tell somebody, it's a bit cheeky to tell somebody that they're actually pronouncing their own name wrongly. But if Dracula is pronounced Dracula, who do we side with here? I think I'm siding with the Count on this one. Okay, but anyway, if that's how he wants to pronounce his name, that's up to him. But he's not universally popular, but I don't want to go into the specifics of it. Of whether he is a nice person or a nasty, but there's so much history to some of this shite that I really can't be. How do you even go about investigating it when opinions have become so polarised in the first place? What I want to look is slightly more at the overriding issues and how things are evolving here. The first I heard about his appointment was when a petition had been launched. A campaign started to try and get him dismissed just as soon as he'd been taken on board, and this was launched by some of the people over at Free Thought blogs who really don't hold him in particularly high esteem. When I first heard about this, it smacked to me a little bit of a lynch mob, and I know that several people have equated, well, this is what happened to Rebecca Watson. That smacked a little bit to me, although I wasn't aware of that at the time. It kind of predates me a bit. Not me existing, but me knowing about these kind of things. That smacks me as something of a lynch mob as well. But the more that I've thought about this Justin Vacula appointment, the more that my position has altered. In fact, this might come as a surprise to some people, and I don't actually champion his appointment. I actually think that it was a strategically wrong thing to do. Whether the petition is the right thing to do is another matter. Whether that's the right way to tackle things, I tend to think that petitions aren't. They're a load of shite. If you believe in something, write a letter personally and explain what you think. Petitions are just bandwagon jumping monster things that are full of shite, really, and they are just ways and mechanisms of bullying people outside of providing them with the information. So I don't know whether that was the right way of doing things, but I do think that Justin Vacula was a bad appointment, and that's aside from whether what he's done is acceptable or unacceptable. Let me try and explain why I think that's the case. As somebody who is an outsider looking in on this, I'm not American, I'm not an activist, I'm not involved in any kind of socio-political movements, political movements or philosophical movements of any sort. What I can see here is that a huge division, a huge split has occurred, and not necessarily along the lines. Some people were perhaps driving for a split, were happy to have a split, but the split that they've seen, the people that they've tried to shed off, has taken a great deal of other people, perhaps more worthy people, perhaps more likeable people with them, and that's got to present a problem here, I think. And this seems to run very, very deep. It seems to me that when you have a situation like that, if you want to employ somebody to a representative position, you do not want to, for pragmatic reasons, regardless of whether they've actually done anything wrong themselves or not, at that point in time you do not want to employ someone who is going to polarise and is going to piss some people off and make some people less likely to get on board. I think that applies, clearly that applies to Justin Vacula. It would also apply if they'd employed Ophelia Benson, or if they'd employed PZ Myers or Rebecca Watson to do the same kind of role. Anybody who's involved in these discussions who is polarising and who some people really detest for one reason or another, they are not a good person to have in that role. There are usually plenty of people around who have sat on the fence, who have taken a middle ground, and perhaps got some shit from it from both sides for doing so. They are better appointments if what you want to do ultimately is to heal the rift. And let me say, looking at this from an outside, this is a rift that has to be healed here, because this is too deep and there are too many people on either side. It seems as if the whole edifice is just dragging itself apart, and it needs some mechanism of bringing it together. One of the first things of bringing it together are having people in these representative roles that don't polarise. Another thing is not keep prodding at the wound. Is it not possible to have, for example, because people have prodded at the wound, have they not? I've seen numerous this happens on both sides, because I've seen numerous speeches given by Rebecca Watson. There must be 100 different things Rebecca Watson could talk about other than Rebecca Watson. And yet every time she talks about her experiences and every time she talks about Rebecca Watson, that adds a little bit more fuel to the fire, doesn't it? Every time somebody does something along those lines, that just feeds the flames a little bit more. It keeps it all dragging a little bit longer. It makes those rifts and divisions that little bit deeper. There comes a time where a line has to be drawn underneath it all. And with that in mind, I want to show you a few things. I want to show you a couple of correspondence that I've had to show that there is a glimmer of light. And the glimmer of light takes the form that a lot of the way people are acting does not represent themselves. There is so much heat generated that people are acting in ways, even some of the worst purveyors of the trollishness and the nastiness are acting in ways that betray them, that are not the way that they really are. I want to give you two examples, one example on each side. So the first example I want to give is a poster called Brownian, quite a robust individual who posts over at Free Thought Blogs, especially on PZ Myers' Pharyngula blog. Here is an exchange that Brownian had with me. How's this, Jimmy, you fucking two-faced lying bag of shit? You go fuck yourself, get something heavy and sharp, die whilst doing it, if possible. That's the worst comment Brownian left to me, but left a series of very nasty comments. Now, to be fair to Brownian, and this is the point, Brownian apologised about 24 hours after making that comment. Jim, I'm really sorry for writing that, and I sincerely apologise to you and any others who were bothered or offended by it. I promise I'll try my best in the future to do better. As penance, I'll get off the internet for at least the rest of the day and reevaluate my purpose here. That may not sound like much, but it's one less jerk polluting the discourse in the meantime. Again, I'm really sorry, Jim. That sounds like a pretty genuine apology to me. Okay, so set that to one side. That's on the Pro Free Thought blog side. Set that to one side. Here's someone on the other side of the fence who sent me a PM. I won't tell you the guy's name because this was a private correspondence, unlike the other one which was in an open forum. These were two comments this chap made in one in consecutive private messages that were sent. This was the first one. By the way, I have wrote things on Free Thought blogs that I regret. Nasty things and things I wouldn't say in real life. In my opinion, that makes me a hypocrite and a coward, but meh. I got a reaction, and that is what it boils down to now. Key words at the end there. And then on the next PM, I still feel bad about the things I say. I just engage utter cunt mode when I am on Free Thought blogs. The threads I'm not banned in anyway. Like I said, it wasn't always the same. I think similar sentiments from both sides there. they both come across as actually quite reasonable people. If you had a face-to-face conversation, even if you disagreed with them, I'm sure you could have quite a reasonable argument over something. But it seems to me that this is what has happened. This whole conversation, this whole debate has descended into a shit-flinging shitstorm where all it's about is throwing as much mud as you can. It's a simple fact that when people get sufficiently pissed off, a certain percentage of people just go into troll mode, and that can be because you so despise the other person's opinion. It can be because the other person isn't giving you a chance to voice your opinion. Certainly in regards to my channel, that's the thing that pisses people off the most. If you try and censor people and you're a little bit too heavy-handed with it, that's when the shit really starts to fly back in your direction. The reason I read these things out is because I actually think it gives a glimmer of hope. I think that the apparent distance between everybody is amplified simply by the amount of heat that's in the situation, and if the heat can be sucked out of it, if we can draw the heat, then things might be able to get back a little bit more to normal, and we might be able to discuss issues rather than shouting at one another. What I do think is that appointing people that are polarising doesn't help. What I do think is that if you're giving a talk about these things, scratch that, what I should have said there is giving a talk in an open public forum. Making this the centrepiece of your talk probably doesn't help. Perhaps in some ways me making this video doesn't help, but God help me, I'm not actually involved in any of these things, so I'm allowed, I suppose, to sit on the side and jab at it a little bit. I hope in this video I'm jabbing at it with good intent and not malintent. I think that's all I wanted to say. What I will say to my subscribers is I'm not going to keep harping on about this. I've got 2 videos recorded, one on antinatalism and one an old school video taking the piss out of a fundamentalist pastor. This isn't going to carry on any longer now, but I just had to make this one. Thank you for watching. I apologise for the Chelsea shirt. They did win 4-0 last night, Chelsea, although it was against a team from Norway. So, I mean, sorry if I've got any Norwegian subscribers, by the way, but what do you expect? Thank you for watching and bye for now.